I am sorry for the delay, but I am back, and it is day 33, 8:02 a.m. in the Big Brother UK All-Stars house. We see over in the main house, even though it is completely storming outside, all of our house guests are awake and at the stereo dancing while they're a little bit covered from the rain. We see that Pete is, of course, naked and dancing, but the lightning is getting very intense and pretty dangerous. We see that Josie is a little bit stinky, as a lot of them have skipped showering to go ahead and dance, and Luke is still naked from hooking up with Gemma Collins and is enjoying a nice beverage by the bar. Over in the lab, we see that a fight has already broken out this morning. This one is between Charlie and Gina. I'm not too surprised, as Charlie does tend to have a lot of enemies pretty quickly. However, the fight is interesting. I definitely haven't seen some of these fighting moves ever before.
Chongy Rambo!
And even though Charlie most likely started it, Gina finishes it and wins the fight and beats Charlie in the end. It looks as though Charlie then tries to seek comfort in Perez, and everything seems to be squashed and settled. However, Kim goes ahead and gets on her phone, and I feel like this is like a I'm calling the police sort of Karen moment. However, no one is going to be kicked out of the house. I'm not going to give them any warnings or anything like that, as all of them are in the lab, and only one of them will be leaving tomorrow night. However, of course, I do have a little bit of a twist up my sleeve planned for today over here in the lab. I'm not too done with Davina, our unlucky 13th house guest, who's a part of both the main house and the lab. We see that a lot of the house guests are slowly still coming into the bathroom to either see what was going on or to get ready for the day, as Gina is heading into the storage room looking for a place to run and hide from the storm, but also just from the other house guest. We hear that while she's in there, a huge lightning strike hits down on the house, and it actually hit Emma Willis, who is the only one that was managed to get into the rain as she was on the punching bag. Thankfully, she did survive, but she is burnt to a crisp. And she goes ahead, gets covered once again, and tries to make herself feel better by dancing to some tunes. Hopefully, if everyone can just stay under the awning, everything will still be good to go. And we see that Isabelle and Brian are catching up in the kitchen, while the other three house guests, Josie, Cameron, and Craig, are in the bathroom. These are the only house guests in the main house that are smart enough to just stay inside. Well, I guess except Cameron. At 11:21 a.m., we see that most of the lab house guests are inside their living room, getting some breakfast started, doing some cleaning, socializing just a little bit. We see that Kim has come all the way into the living room through the rain to go and talk to Tamaz, who she seems to really have grown a fondness for, and he always makes her feel a little bit better, while Charlie actually goes ahead and washes Gina's dirty dishes. I guess she's really feeling like put in her place after Gina won that fight. We see that Coolio has joined them, but he's just relaxing on the couch, kind of overhearing everyone's conversations, while Davina sits and talks to Gina, probably about her win that she got. Davina is pretty athletic and muscly, so I'm sure she'd probably love to hear some boxing stories. I don't know. In the bathroom, we see that Makosi, Perez, and Nikki are hanging out. Perez has really seemed to kind of cling to the OG house guest of came over to the lab, Charlie, Makosi, and Nikki, more so than the lab house guest he came in with originally. And the three of the girls that have come over really do seem to have formed a nice bond. Too bad it won't continue after tomorrow. At 3:51 p.m., Big Brother goes ahead and calls all of the lab house guests into their living room for a final twist to this week. And of course, Davina, being our unlucky 13th house guest and our poorest, is going to have one final twist or responsibility left. We all know that the public have been voting for which house guests they want to save from the lab. And we know that earlier in the week, Davina actually got to pick 3 of the house guests to go ahead and switch places with lab house guest and OG house guest. But we're actually going to call Davina into the diary room one more time, and she is not only going to pick one house guest that is her favorite, kind of like she did before. This house guest, however, isn't switching with anyone from the original house, but instead they are still just going to be safe. They're going to join the house and just be a permanent house guest, leaving all the other remaining house guests still up on the block for eviction tomorrow. However, I do have to say, with my videos being late, the voting for that is still closed. It closed on Friday, and we'll just be going on from there. So let's see which one was saved. And it was, of course, based on the relationship statuses. And Davina actually picked Makosi. Makosi was the closest one that she had left in the lab. And so Makosi is now safe and will be able to rejoin her house guest over in the main house. So she goes ahead, she thanks Davina, and she heads out the door to head back over to the main house.
Oh. Ooh, bin koya. Oh, Ina.
With Makosi out of the equation, we still have 7 of our lab house guests up on the block, including Coolio, Tamaz, Nikki, Charlie, Perez, Kim, and Gina. But you guys have already voted for who you want to save and become an original house guest and join the main house. That will be revealed in tomorrow's episode that I will be posting. Again, sorry for the delay. I've had a little bit of a medical emergency, nothing deadly or anything like that, but did prevent me from being able to sit down at the computer and work. I have a desktop, so it just, I don't know. I don't want to get too specific, but it just wasn't really working out for me. Because you guys still had the original amount of time, I don't really want to prolong it. So the voting is closed. I'm just going to do it based off those votes. So any votes that you leave in the comments down below will not count, sadly. We see that after that big announcement, all of our house guests have kind of scattered. We see that Coolio, Perez, Tamaz, and Gina are in the bathroom, while in the main house, they don't really seem to mind that much that Makosi has rejoined them. She immediately goes outside and starts dancing with Allison. Meanwhile, in the living room, we see that Pete and Craig are getting up to their usual behavior, except this time it involves burnt Emma Willis. In the bathroom, we see that it is, of course, a mess with garbage everywhere. We see that Josie is fixing the sink. It looks as though the other 2 toilets have just gotten repaired, and Isabelle is now cleaning those. And Brian is trying to calm Luke down, from it seems. I don't know what I was trying to say there. I don't know. No one really seems to be paying too much attention to Makosi. She's still out by the speaker with Allison, and Cameron has now joined her. But apart from that, everyone's just kind of still going around doing their errands and cleaning up the place. Outside, the storm intensifies, and Nadia goes ahead and calls all of the chickens into the coop just for their safety to make sure none of them get roasted. This morning, sadly, the rooster did pass away. The Grim Reaper went and got him. However, I didn't see him again. He just kind of didn't appear in the house. We see that Cameron is looking outside at the rain, meanwhile listening to the sounds of moans and groans from the 3 lovers over in the living room. And Nadia has ran in to get away from the storm, but hasn't seemed to pay too much attention to what she ran into. Almost all of the lab house guests are inside the bathroom now. Not really doing too much, just kind of socializing and trying to escape the rain. I love that when they go inside, they still tend to use their umbrella, sometimes more so than they do when they're outside. Just, a little bit of extra protection. However, I think that's just going to attract some lightning. This is when I noticed, however, that Tamaz had some stripes on his skin. He seemed to be a little bit under the weather. So Big Brother goes ahead and calls him to the diary room just to give him a little bit of medication. Meanwhile, he passes Nikki and Charlie, who are making their way to the bathroom. And, of course, Charlie has to stop in the middle of the garden while it's pouring down raining to mop up the grass.
Rosberg. Rosa. Finale Boboes. Chibi.
At 8:58 p.m., Craig ends up going into the bedroom, crying under the sheets, and then once he's finished, he actually just gets back in bed and goes to sleep. And a lot of the house guests end up following suit, including Nadia. I think Brian ends up doing that. There's a few other house guests that end up going into the bedroom. And as we can see, Pete unfortunately gets struck by lightning, and that's when Big Brother goes ahead and decides to shut down both gardens and to call all house guests indoors to remain safe and away from any other injuries. But unfortunately, it did zap my cameras because I accidentally deleted some footage and didn't get to end the episode properly. However, come back to the channel tomorrow to see the results of the eviction as we hurry up and get this week wrapped up so we can start all over again next week. So again, see you tomorrow. Bye.